precious little dragons. It has been a while. Alright, so first things first. This is unfortunately not my first time filming this video. I had the quite unfortunate experience of filming the entire review, and when I uploaded it to my computer, discovered that the entire thing had gone out of focus, and it had never gone back in, and I'd gotten like nothing. So what I'm doing today is I'm going to use my voiceover from the first review and superimpose it as a voiceover onto me doing my makeup today, and hopefully everything will be in focus this time and it'll all be fine and dandy. So without further ado, I am going to begin my review of A Blade So Black by LL McKinney. Alright, I am super excited about this one. So I know by the time you guys see this, again, Black History Month will be over, because I wasn't thinking about the fact that reading books for Black History Month during Black History Month would mean that by the time I finished the book, recorded the video, edited the video, uploaded the video, it would definitely not be February anymore. But there's no reason why we can't celebrate Black History Month throughout the rest of the year. So this is extended Black History Month in March. So this is, I believe, a debut novel. Yes, which, for a debut novel, stunning. Stunning. I'm so jealous of her writing ability. She's so good. But yes, so this is a African-American main character with an African-American author. It is a retelling of Alice in Wonderland set in modern day. Because this is going to be kind of Alice in Wonderland inspired makeup, I am going to be, and particularly like it's card focused, which a lot of Alice in Wonderland stuff already is kind of card focused. So it's going to be related to like the suits and like very red and black. So I'm going to be trying to do mismatched but coordinated eye makeup, like red on one eye, black on the other. I may look a little whack. My mom will judge me. It's okay. Let's do our friendly spoiler-free review. So basically this is a retelling of Alice in Wonderland. So our main character, Alice, lives in Atlanta, Georgia, and she discovers the existence of Wonderland on the night her father dies, when a nightmare, which is basically this crazy beast thing, attacks, and she meets a boy named Addison Hata who kind of kills the creature, and he explains to her that there is a veil between Wonderland, which is basically the world of the dreams and hopes and fears of humankind, and the human world. And there are dream walkers, who are humans that are able to destroy the nightmares that try to cross over the veil. Humans, because they're the ones who create the nightmares, are the only ones that can destroy them. So Addison starts to train Alice as the Westgate's dream walker, and she does this for about a year. And that's when we get into the main thrust of our story. So basically way back when in Wonderland, pretty much everything was at peace when the first human crossed over the veil. So she was a little girl, so I think this is kind of a hint at the original Alice, which, like the Alice in Wonderland Alice, maybe, I think. Not confirmed, but I think. Anyway, so the queen's daughter, which she had 3 daughters, but the queen's youngest daughter was very close friends with, I'm just going to call her the original Alice, but they were both mysteriously murdered, which caused the queen to turn into the Black Queen. And she kind of lost her mind, went evil, everything was crazy. And the 2 remaining daughters, the Red Queen and the White Queen, had to basically subdue their mother, and they used 2 relics called the heart and the eye in order to do this. And then because the heart and eye were so dangerous together, they scattered them and pretty much returned everything to a kind of shattered piece. So after about a year of dream walking, suddenly Alice discovers that this so-called ancient history isn't in fact so ancient and still has ramifications. Addison is mysteriously poisoned, and she has to venture deeper into Wonderland than she ever has before and race against time to try and save Addison and other Wonderland people from someone who is an imposter Black Knight. It's super intense, super exhilarating, keeps you on the edge of your seat the whole time. From this point forward, there will be spoilers ahead, so if that is a bother to you, you can check the timestamp at the bottom for the final look and summary. If you don't care about spoilers, then go ahead and keep watching. So as I mentioned, I really love fairy tale retellings. That is one of my favorite subgenres. Well, I'm not necessarily sure you would strictly consider the original Alice in Wonderland a fairy tale. I think it falls enough into that category and enough of a classic that this would definitely be considered a fairy tale retelling, and therefore I was already like 5 steps closer to liking it in the first place. So I started this book with pretty high expectations and it did not disappoint. I was absolutely over the moon with how well this book was told. It was super fast paced and engaging from like moment one. Alright, so sorry guys. Okay, so I was in the middle of filming and my battery died, and then I discovered that all 3 of my camera batteries were pretty much dead. So I took a break for about an hour, ate some lunch, watched a couple YouTube videos. Now I'm back. So hopefully I will be able to actually finish this. So I honestly, like, I kind of know where I left off, but I kind of didn't. So if this section seems a little jumbled, post-editing, my apologies. Alright, so let's jump back in. You know me, I love characters. That's my thing. I thought all of the characters in this book were really fun. I was 100% down. And I thought the characters were unique and interesting. Even the ones that were like very clearly side characters were still interesting and pretty well developed. Like, I was happy with it. I thought they were all really fun and very Alice in Wonderland inspired. For instance, the original Alice in Wonderland, you have Tweedledee and Tweedledum. So in this one, the Tweedledee and Tweedledum are Russian twins who are the dream walkers in, is it the northern gate or the eastern gate? Whatever, they're Russian. And so they do their thing. They're really funny. You know, they're twins. They're kind of mischievous, kind of your friend George Weasley type. They eat a lot of food. They do what they set out to do, and they're really fun to read. There's lots of good little callbacks to the original story. So like I said, there's the hint that possibly there was an original Alice, like the one from Lewis Carroll's story. In Wonderland's narrative as a whole, Alice's cats are named Lewis and Carroll. So, you know, just little details like that where you see the callbacks and it's like, I see you. That's chill. Yeah, and I really did love all the characters. I thought that Alice was an engaging character in her own right, and I was happy with like how she handled everything. She seemed like a lot of YA books, you know, they try to make their characters really so serious and so mature when teenagers aren't always, or when they try to specifically make them not mature, it's in a really annoying way. And not to say teenagers can't be annoying, they absolutely can, as a former teenager. But I thought that her struggles as a teenager in this weird scenario where she also kind of is a superhero and saves the world are pretty well handled. And I think it's really accurate for a decently mature teenager. And even like Courtney. So one thing I thought was interesting is even when I was a teenager, boy craziness in general drove me up a wall. Could not deal with it. It was not my thing. And I got really annoyed when people were like, boys, 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 boys. I'm just like, can we talk about literally anything else? Please? And so that kind of crosses over into a lot of YA, and it tends to annoy me just as much now as it did back then. And for whatever reason, the way it was written didn't annoy me, which, and maybe to be fair, it was because it wasn't really, I mean, it was kind of with Alice a little bit, but like not as much as it was with Courtney. Like that was like one of her things, was she was kind of boy crazy. It was kind of confusing. Like, I think she was supposed to be dating Chess, but then there was also a little bit of like, there was like tension between Alice and Chess, And then Courtney was very openly, like, interested in a lot of other boys as well. So, or at least just appreciating the idea of other boys. Like Addison, she's just like, that boy is hot. What? Like, I would generally be kind of annoyed with that, but for whatever reason, it wasn't as annoying as I would normally have found it. Like, and I don't know if that was a difference in just how I was reading / interpreting it, or if it was actually just she was written in a way that just seemed realistic to teenagers and I wasn't annoyed with it. So I'm not really sure. I think it was mostly just the writing didn't annoy me, which, again, as I said, kind of an accomplishment. I thought that, like, the different amounts of, like, romantic tension or boy craziness or whatever didn't detract from the story. And I think that was what I appreciated, because I think a lot of times things annoy me because they detract from the story, or because they make the characters so flat that that is their only personality characteristic, is that they're interested in romantic relationships. And Courtney's, like, not like that. She values her friendship with Alice to the extreme. She is loyal, she is helpful, she covers for Alice a lot with her mom. There's a lot more to Courtney, even as a side character, than just boy craziness, which I appreciated. As I mentioned, there are aspects of the boy crazy-ishness with Alice as well, but they're not quite as dramatic. There's obviously some romantic tension between her and Addison throughout the book. That does have a little bit of a fruition, but again, it doesn't really detract from the main plot of the story, which is trying to thwart the imposter Black Knight and to save Addison and the Red Queen, who's also poisoned by the Black Knight. So that brings me back to the plot, which, like I said, I found it thoroughly engaging, really well done. So I didn't go into a ton of detail during the summary about the Black Knight or any of that. The Black Knight was basically the Queen of Hearts, or the Black Queen's, main weapon of terror. He was loyal only to her, and he used what was called a vorpal blade in order to kind of carry out all of her wishes. So there was all of that happening, and then the nightmares get stronger at night. So whenever Alice goes into Wonderland to try and deal with nightmares, her goal is always to get back before night sets in. And so one night she doesn't quite make it, and she is attacked by a guy who calls himself the Black Knight. And I thought we don't really get to know a lot about his character. He's very mysterious, but he has that kind of cocky casual villain vibe. Like, he's just like, whatever, you're doing a great job, like, that was a really bad imitation of a cocky villain. Anyway, so I just thought he was kind of fun to read. Like, not that that's super unique. I mean, in recent decades, a lot of people have been trying to go the more cocky villain route, give them a little bit of personality as opposed to your classic mastermind villain. But I thought it was done well. He very, very quickly overpowered pretty much everybody, with the exception of Hata. So one of the plot twists throughout the book, which I thought it was built really well. So at the beginning of the book, you know that during the war in Wonderland, Hata was originally on the Queen of Hearts side, and then he ended up realizing that he was wrong and turning against her, and he helped turn the tide of the war. So at the end of the war, his life was spared because he should have probably just been killed. However, he was banished from Wonderland and he guards the gate. So he can venture very, very briefly into Wonderland, but if he goes in too far, then it starts to hurt him severely. Now, the Duchess is another one that she was also banished at the end of the war, but her punishment was not quite as severe as his, so she can go a lot further into Wonderland without it harming her. And you don't really find out what he did. Like, Alice very, very obviously thinks that his sentence is a little bit severe, and the Duchess is like, you'll just have to ask him yourself. It's not my place to tell you. Da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da. You find out that, I would say towards the mid-end of the book, that You know, everyone is so convinced that this Black Knight is an imposter, and Alice doesn't quite know why he would be an imposter. She was like, he has the Vorpal Blade, he can do all this stuff, he knows all this stuff, why wouldn't he be the Black Knight? And Hata is finally like, but Hata's like, well, I know he can't be the Black Knight because I was the Black Knight. And so that explains like a lot of, like just a lot of the situation, honestly. But I thought it was a really well built and good reveal. Like it made, like I didn't totally see it coming, but it made perfect sense when it was revealed based on the information that we had about Hata. The other thing I thought was well built, you get the situation with, you know, they go to Wonderland to try and find the heart, because the heart is one of those ancient relics and it's the only way to possibly cure Hata. And so they go and they find out that I think it's the Red Queen, or no, maybe it's the White Queen. Which one is the mother? What is Oda Beth's mother? Hold on. Wipe off the eyeshadow. Gotta consult the book. White Queen. So the Red Queen went missing years and years before, and the White Queen is currently sick. She was also poisoned by the Black Knight, and so her daughter Oda Beth is currently the one in charge, and she's fairly young. She's just trying to figure everything out. She's scared about her mother, and so Alice almost gets herself killed when she meets her, like almost an off with her head sort of moment, and is only saved because Zelon, who's like the captain of the guard-ish, kind of comes to her defense and says, you know, she's just worried. Like, please don't, you know, it's okay. She kind of like mitigates the situation a little bit. So the Black Knight attacked the White Queen and poisoned her, and she's not doing so hot. She has very little time left. So, you know, they all set out together. Zelon, the Tweedles, the Duchess, Oda Beth, and Alice all set out back to the human world to hopefully find the eye, which will tell them where the heart is, and they have to, because they don't know and they can't ask the queen where she hid the eye, they're kind of in a little bit of a sticky situation. They're of course attacked by the Black Knight on the way, but they manage to escape mostly in one piece, though Zelon is very, very nearly killed. So like I said, I like that this book does a good job of kind of establishing relationships that happened prior to the story. So you get a hint of like a prior maybe relationship between the Duchess and Hata. There's something going on there. Not sure exactly what, it's not fully revealed in this book, but there's that. There's Oda Beth and Zelon, who are extremely close, and so there's hints at like a possible kind of relationship there, which guard royal relationships are always really cute. So I was just like, ooh, they like each other, and then they did. It was very cute. So yeah, but they're very concerned about each other throughout the whole book. But, you know, it's not told in a way that's just like obvious. It's more of a way that you see these characters that have such a close relationship. Like, even though you're viewing it from like kind of an outside standpoint, you can still tell that they're close to each other. Okay, so yeah, like I said, I loved all the characters. I thought they were all really well done. I like the kind of care and compassion between Alice and Hata. I thought that was well done. They really care about each other. You believe that, you know, Alice would risk a lot of things to make sure Hata is healed, that he feels safe. And I feel like, you know, even though there's still a lot of secrets surrounding Hata, even once you find out he was the Black Knight, you kind of understand that he has this like deep sense of duty, this deep sense of connection to those he's close to, and he will do anything to make sure that he keeps them safe, and he very much regrets a lot of harmful things that happened in his past. He wants to make things right. He doesn't want to be the reason why the imposter Black Knight wins. You know, he just, it's interesting to watch his character, because even though you don't, again, know all of the story about him, you understand his motivations and you understand him, and he's a sympathetic character. Coming back to kind of the human world version of things, so like I said, this is a book with an African-American main character, so you do kind of deal with some issues of race and racism. Shortly before the main plot kind of takes forward, there was a girl that was shot by police, and so tensions in Atlanta are very, very high. Everyone's just really concerned, and you kind of get the sense that everything is just kind of falling apart a little bit. One relationship that I thought was done really well was the relationship between Alice and her mother. And her mother, you know, she's strict, but like in a caring way. You never doubt that her mother cares for her, that her mother wants her to be safe, to succeed. This other African American girl was just shot and killed by police. You see the absolute fear in her as a parent, and her daughter keeps sneaking off in the middle of the night. We have the whole situation. Alice is obviously frustrated because she's like, I have to save the world, I have to save Addison, all this stuff is happening, I need to do my job, but she hasn't told her mother about it, and so her mother just thinks her daughter's like sneaking out and being terrible, and it's easier to understand where that's coming from. I thought that was written really well. I really liked being able to see the concerns that her mother had for her, but intertwined with love. Just little details like her mother would cook food for her just to show that things were okay. And you know, they're both still going through the grieving process about losing her dad. And there's this one really powerful moment, I feel like, where it's towards the end of the book, but Alice goes to get into her dad's old toolbox, and everything kind of hits her being in that place, because she was obviously very, very close to her dad, and being in that place, she just breaks down crying, and her mother comes in and finds her on the floor, and they just have this really beautiful moment, heartbreaking moment, you know, and it's just, you still see how real and deep the grief is. And this is even, you know, almost a year and a half, 2 years later, something like that. But I like the fact that her dad, the death of her dad, and we never quite find out how he died, actually, I don't believe. But you can just see how the death of her dad still impacts her and still impacts her family that long later. And, you know, a lot of times grief is kind of brushed aside. Like, you have your few months where you're allowed to be kind of messed up and grieving, and then it's like, oh, you should be back to normal. And I liked that it was kind of, you know, gently addressed. It wasn't preachy, but it was gently addressed that it's okay to still be not okay, that it's okay to still grieve and be processing this and dealing with the ramifications of this, and it still influences the actions and decisions of the characters. You know, of course, you know, her relationship with her mom is still tenuous because she keeps sneaking out and her mom doesn't know. No, I did sort of wish she had told her mom about the dream walking stuff, but like I can understand why she didn't, because like I can imagine how that probably would have gone down. But like at the same time, it was kind of frustrating, like just communicate with your mother. Like I said, you can obviously tell that Alice's mom cares about her, that she wants to make sure that she's safe. She's obviously just really scared about her well-being, and you know, I think that is in particular done really, really well. Because I feel like a lot of things like this would be tempted to make the parent just like entirely unreasonable, or their overprotectiveness is unfounded, but her overprotectiveness is totally founded, and her mom is very open and honest about that. And I applaud LL McKinney on kind of, you know, even though it's not necessarily the healthiest mother-daughter relationship, it's a very realistic mother-daughter relationship, specifically of like teenagers. And you know, obviously I can't really speak to the African American experience, especially in the South, because I don't live there, but based on experiences of people I know, experiences of, you know, what I've read and what I've seen, it seems to be accurate to that experience as well. You know, like I said, just the general fear and how fear kind of impacts you, and that's the theme of a lot of the book, honestly, because you know, we get the nightmares, we get the stuff with the Black Knight, we get all of this stuff that is way out of Alice's control, and you get to see how she deals with fear and how fear affects you. And in this version of reality, it very literally creates these monsters, these manifestations of fear, of terror. And I think that that is really interesting. There is some aspects of mystery. You don't fully understand the backstories of all of the character. You don't understand everything that they're going through, everything that they've done up until this point in the narrative, particularly surrounding like the mythos of the Vorpal Blade and the ascension of the the Black Queen, you know, you don't get the whole story. There's a lot of details that are hard to understand, that are left out, and I kind of appreciate that because it sets up a very rich world. You know, there's a lot of detail that you are not going to get in the main story, but you like are aware that it's there. I honestly appreciate that because I feel like a lot of books, like if they want to create a detailed world, what they do is they like give you like an information dump. And well, there's some authors that pull that off, J.R.R. Tolkien, and even he like was sometimes on the extreme end of that. There are ways to do it and ways to create a rich and detailed world without completely overwhelming your audience. And I think that McKinney did that really well, just by giving you hints and allusions of details. And you know, she gave you the relevant details that you needed for this particular story, but you knew that there was a lot more depth and richness that you revealed in future stories, or you know, was just hinted at enough to give you that sense of a well-developed world, a well-rounded world. There was lots of little details I just enjoyed. The moments of interaction between Alice and her friends, Chess and Courtney. I really enjoyed things like at the end, you know, they go to face the Black Knight and everything, and he's demanded that they turn the eye over to him, and Alice briefly tricks him by handing him like a time turner, which, you know, I'm also reviewing the Harry Potter series at the moment, so that for me just, it really made me laugh. One other detail that I thought was really funny, and maybe funny is not the right word. I just really like the addition of this detail because it showed to me that the author knew what she was doing and knew how to develop a world, was the fact that Alice's family are Pepsi people, which may seem like a really weird little detail, but Atlanta is the home of Coca-Cola. Like, it's almost a sin to be a Pepsi person in Atlanta, but like it makes that little detail, you know, like, oh well, her mom's side of the family are all Pepsi people, so she drinks Pepsi, and it's just kind of her little rebellion, kind of. And so that seems like such a small detail, and really, I mean, it only came up in literally one scene. But to me, that was the sign of an author who either grew up in Atlanta or did at least enough research about the place where her story was taking place that she could add those rich little details that most people wouldn't know about that place. Like, if I hadn't gone to Atlanta before, which, I mean, you know, I don't live there, I'm not from there, but I just did happen to know it. So for me, that made it an even richer story. I did like the way that they approached the magic of Wonderland. And of course we didn't get like a whole like magic explanation, but we did get bits and pieces. And so in their worlds they have poets, and the poets are kind of the magicians, and the more adept a poet is, the less sense they make. So Maddie is the poet that works at the Looking Glass, which is a bar that holds the entrance to the Veil to Wonderland. And Maddie makes no sense like half the time. And so she actually, if she wants to speak like a normal human, she has to take this really, really nasty potion to make herself make sense. And I just thought it was an interesting concept. I was down for it, honestly. It wasn't info dump, it just kind of was. But the little that we did get of it, I really enjoyed. It seems like they use a lot of poetry as kind of their base for magic. Anyway, so there are real stakes in this book. So one character, I'm not going to spoil who, just in case, you know, you haven't read it yet and you want to. But there is one character that dies, and it significantly impacts, you know, the rest of the characters. And it wasn't, I don't know, I couldn't tell, it sounds weird to say couldn't tell of who I expected to die. Like, I expected that there might be someone that died, like, that just seemed kind of like the way it was going. It didn't seem like a book that would let people stay safe, if that makes any sense. So I wasn't surprised that someone died. There was a twist ending, and I was surprised at the twist ending. I was like, I thought, I don't know, I was just like, oh my gosh, what is happening? And I was like, I need the next book right now. I mean, like, it doesn't take a lot for me to cry, honestly. Like, it's not like a shocker if I cry at all ever. But I was emotionally invested, which is good, because sometimes I don't cry when characters die in books, because sometimes, you know, I saw it coming, and then it wasn't to say it wasn't, like, it didn't make sense. I think that the stakes in this world are high enough that it makes sense for a character to die. You know, there's a lot of crazy stuff going around, and the villain is pretty darn powerful, and seems to be more powerful than these characters are at this point in the game. It's very sad, but it made sense, but it was also I was emotionally invested, so I cried. This twist ending though, like, if it detracts from where, like, the emotional investment, or if it adds to it, like, I'm just not sure at this point. But like, when I was reading it, I was just like what the heck is happening? And I think I did enjoy the twist ending. I think it just kept me engaged for the next book. I don't think it was, like, necessarily not earned. I think because this book wasn't its own story. It's very much a part of a series. It's very much the first part of a series. Not to say that it didn't have a plot of its own, it did. The plot was they kind of had this quest to find the eye. They do end up finding the eye and all of that, which now they have to find the heart so they can actually, you know, save the peeps. I should never say that again. So they can save the people. Alright, friends, so this is the final look. So, you know, as I hopefully mentioned in the voiceover, since the book has, you know, a very, you know, Alice in Wonderland, which has kind of a card theme, I went with the heart. And then, you know, of course, you know, you have your suits, the red and the black, so that's kind of where this came from. It almost feels kind of Harley Quinn-esque, but she's also kind of card inspired. So I took the inspiration from this book, not Harley Quinn, just to be clear. But yeah, so I have my little heart beauty mark, which I think turned out better the first time I filmed, unfortunately, but you do what you can. And then I think the heart and my lips actually turned out better this time, so I'm happy with that. I think I ended up doing my blush a little heavier this time around, but kind of digging it. Honestly, I think it looks pretty good overall. I'm pretty happy with it. This is obviously not the most wearable makeup. Understatement. But it's fun nonetheless. So I am going to assume, hopefully, that I edited in the final summary as well, but if not, the super fast summary is I absolutely adored this book. It's a stunning debut novel, and you should absolutely read it, especially if you're into fairy tale retellings and or fantasy. I think it's just a super fun twist, and I cannot wait for the next book. And yo, I am glad I picked it up for Black History Month. Like, I know it's no longer February, but as I said in my The Help review, there is absolutely no reason we can't celebrate amazing African-American main characters and authors the other 11 months of the year. So, yeah, that's pretty much it. Like I said, I am happy with the look. I am happy with the book. Ooh, that should be a tagline. Happy with the look, happy with the book. I don't know. Let me know if you think that's like a good tagline or something. Whatever. Anyway, that's beside the point. I'm happy in general. Hopefully this video will be in focus. If not, I don't know what to do. Maybe I'll just like add like a bokeh effect and call it fashion. That's all I got. So thank you so much for joining me today. I would love to hear from you. If you have suggestions for book looks I should do in the future, please let me know down below. Also, I have Instagram, so you can follow me there as well. I am using my hands so much, I don't know why. That's said the point as well. Sorry, I'm a little scatterbrained right now. I forgot to set my makeup. Oh dang. What is this, hydration? We don't know her. Let's do the glowy dewy mist as well, because heck, my face needs hydration. There we go. Okay. beside the point. I swear, I'm done. So, I almost ended it with Dr. Mike's tagline, like the stay happy and stay healthy, but that's not mine. That's not my outro. So, y'all, what is happening to my brain? I haven't slept in like 3 days. Help. Anyway, I love you all so much. I hope you have an absolutely beautiful, wonderful day filled with magic and no nightmares. You are all amazing. If you liked all of this, please consider subscribing, commenting, liking, all of that YouTubery stuff. And I will see you next time.